this situation before, especially under the Fourth Republican Constitution. So it is not as if it was hidden. We knew. And that is the more reason why, as a government, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama is not doubling in excuses. He's moved swiftly into action to confronting some of these challenges. And I can allay the fears of my brother. I think the track record of the National Democratic Congress is there in that light. That's why I quickly made reference to the National Buffer Stock Company when it was being established. The overall objective was simply to see how we could mobilize internal resources to empower farmers to be able to at least produce the needed requirements for consumption locally, and to a very large extent to ensure that exports too will take the needed advantage from it. Okay. All hope is not lost, because we all know that fast forward after 2016, that buffer stock company was turned into something else, mismanaged, and all what it was interested in doing was buying exported commodity, especially rice and other food grains from foreign companies to be able to supply to our senior high schools and to a very large extent to our teacher training colleges. But currently, if you look at the manifesto of the National Democratic Congress, President Mahama indicated his obsession with agriculture mechanization centers. The whole idea is simply to open up the agriculture sector, take advantage of that sector to be able to improve our economic outlook. Okay. And so National Buffer Stock Company, once again, would have a role to play in that whole agriculture drive. All right. We have reached a stage in this country where we need to look each other in the eyes and be candid when it comes to our economic fortunes. I know from where I sit, and based on the information I have, that the journey to recovery is not going to be an easy one. But I am consoled by the fact that we have a president that is ready to listen and to communicate challenges to the Ghanaian people, so that holistically we can come together and find acceptable solutions to our economic challenges, like Doc indicated. You see, wisdom is not in the head of a single person. That is why the National Democratic Congress, led by His Excellency President Mahama, from day one, has instituted what we call the Economic Task Force. That is tasked with the responsibility of engaging Ghanaians so that we can fashion out an acceptable model that will take us out of our economic woes. Okay. So it's work in progress. Okay. We have that track record. But as for the economic sectors of this country in terms of rationalization of taxes, he indicated even yesterday in his engagement with the media, or the day before yesterday, that there was a need for this country to consider the possibility of rationalizing our taxes. And I agree with Doc. It has nothing to do with the number of tax regimes that you have. If your tax regimes are not rationalized, at the end of the day, you are going to miss out on your own economic objectives. Because you would think that you are growing economically, but those at the base will be struggling. So there's the need for us to come out with policies that would impact the base. And so it is one of the reasons why we decided to take out, we made a commitment to taking out the e-levy, because a chunk of the economy revolves, especially the informal sector, revolves on that space. So there's the need for us to give them some respite as far as this turbulent economic outlook of our country is concerned.
There is a difference establishing agencies and giving them a task from having a strategic plan in implementing or executing the policies.
The strategic plan.
You understand?
So you see, that's why I'm making about mismanagement. You see, you're missing the point. When the national buffer stock was being established, there was a strategic outlook. And I have also just given you an example of how we intend to link that agricultural mechanization center to the national buffer stock. The strategy is there. The problem has always have to do with mismanagement.
Just hold on. How would the buffer stock have a strategic plan and yet be allowed to buy and import foreign products for their program?
He makes the point about how
it's not about mismanagement. No, you see, if you have the plan, you cannot tell me that it has been mismanaged.
No, but somebody would be held responsible. Then there wouldn't be for us to have the word mismanagement in our dictionary, my brother. Mismanagement.
Where does buffer stock get the money to buy and import these products?
So who sanctions it? So it's mismanagement. Who sanctions it?
I mean, that's
so
why.
If they had a strategic plan to probably get the agri ministry involved and get our farmers to produce for them to buy directly from them, we will not have this. So it means there is a clear policy implementation.
So that's mismanagement. Just bring it in.
Anyway, that's fine.
Because somebody
let's move on to another major issue. And Mr. Saibu made reference to the economic conference that is taking place. We know that one is taking place today. That is the National Education Review Conference, and it's all part of the government's manifesto pledge. You know that the president, when he was campaigning as candidate for the NDC, had indicated that, look, we are going to review the state of education. Reference was made to the free STS, among other things. And yesterday, even before the conference that takes place today, the education minister gave us a sense of some of the changes that they intend to make in terms of our current education structure.
I accept it as a wake-up call. It is urging government and the states that when we promise free, which the free will mean investment in infrastructure, investment in textbooks and exercise books, investment in the quality of teachers. He assures me again that he will invest in motivating teachers in this particular area to give their best to our young people. I am particularly happy to announce that PTAs will be introduced back into the management education under the presidency of Excellency Dr. to work for parents and teachers to work together to improve learning outcomes in our educational institutions, and for PTAs to support our educational institutions.
You heard Education Minister Haruna Idrisu speaking there, and we are indicating the conference is taking place today in the Volta region. We're bringing you a live coverage of that particular event and all that will happen there as well. And now I want to start first with you, Mr. Saibu, on this particular conference and the suggestion that they are bringing PTA back. I mean, the previous government's argument for taking, in fact, not that they disbanded it completely, but just the fact that they were not as powerful as they were previously. So, for instance, PTA levies were taken off completely. And the explanation was that if the PTA levy is on the bill, you have the potential that the students would have to pay something, for which reason they may be sent away from school because they can't pay that particular levy that has been imposed. I mean, what's the idea behind the decision to bring it back?
I think basically the idea to bring it back is rooted to a very large extent on partnership as far as our educational sector is concerned between parents and teachers. That has always been a bedrock, especially considering pre-tertiary education in Ghana. And I remember a school like Tia Ahmadi, I think they commissioned their IMF, there was in their PTA somewhere in 1982. So that tells you that the policy rationale behind PTAs dates back to the 80s. And it has been with the educational system for some time now. All what it needed was fine-tuning. Because in the past, any revenue that was raised by the PTAs were handled by them, and it was outside the public financing bucket of this country. What it simply meant was that we're having challenges in terms of accountability for these funds. Fast forward 2013, President John Dramani Mahama thought it prudent to bring it mainstream. That was after the Auditor General's discoveries of issues related to PTA funds. So it was then agreed that the teachers should have an active interest in how these funds were managed. And to a very large extent, most of them were now being run by the institutions and teachers, so that at the end of the financial year, they could be audited as public funds. Because whichever way you look at it, dues paid by parents to support our educational development ought to be treated as public funds. So that decision was taken. So that tells you the trajectory of progress associated with PTAs. So what the new government needed to do was simply to maintain it, even if you are introducing free senior high school. Because there's still the need for collaboration between parents and that of our teachers.
Okay, so I'll just have you hold on just a second for me. Let me just have this engagement quickly with Dr. Peter Patianti, because he's actually at the conference and he'll be doing a presentation over there shortly. So let me just have this engagement with him. Dr. Ante, thank you so much for joining us. First, I just want to pick, as you are walking into this particular conference, what's top of your mind in terms of some of the issues that you think should generate a discussion in terms of changes that could possibly be made to our entire educational system?
Thank you very much. I think that this is an important milestone in our education journey. We have an opportunity to ensure that there is a collaborative effort in designing educational policies and the way forward for education in this country. I believe that we will have a very fruitful discussion, and collectively, whatever we agree on will be what will be binding to this government and subsequent governments in the direction that education needs to take. So I'm just here with a clear mind and expectation that we'll achieve a lot after we work out of this way.
I mean, even before the engagement begins, the minister has indicated, and I was picking the thoughts of a member of the panel on this issue about the Parent Teachers Association. Where do you stand on why government took it off, and what do you think its reintroduction would make any significant changes in terms of our current structure?
Indeed, one of the biggest challenges in our educational system is school accountability. And school accountability is a collective role by the education officials and parents, and then we have the external people who come in, and then the teachers and so on and so forth. That you cannot have a situation whereby you have only parents coming to the school and meet. I always ask myself, what are they discussing? You need this kind of collaboration between the teacher and the parent. Why? Because the child begins with socialization, starts from the house. So it's the parent that begins the socialization process, and the child is entered into a teacher institution. So you need to have that constant interaction between the teachers and the student, and the parents to ensure the progress of the child, to know the challenges that the teachers are facing, to know the nature and way by which these kids were brought up. But the teachers can also assist the children to their best potential. You can't do this by only having a parent association. So for me, from day one, I've not been in support of this. And I'm very happy that the teachers are going to join the parents in their deliberation about how to move the child education forward, how to move the educational system that the children are in forward, and find possible ways and means to support the child upbringing.
I mean, funding for free SHS has always been a big issue, and there have been suggestions about the need to even take a decision on whether we should be paying for everyone. I'm sure this is something that will come up strongly. Where are you leaning generally on this particular subject?
Interestingly, I'm doing the presentation on education financing. I will be happy if we have a discussion after this, because I want to ensure that we have a collective way after the discussion has ended. But I believe that there should be other ways of supporting government funding of free senior high school. How and what that other way will be, I think the firm will agree on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Ante. We'll leave you now so that you go and prepare for that particular presentation, and subsequently we'll have a conversation about your views on education financing and the other issues that will come up at this particular conference that is taking place in the Volta region. And like we're indicating, it's the education review conference that is taking place in the Volta region as part of government's pledge prior to winning the election, and also the fact that government says that, look, there need to be some changes in the educational system to improve it. And Mr. Saibu, you're making a point about the importance of the collaboration between the parents and the teachers as part of the management of our schools. If you can just land on that point for me.
He re-emphasized the point I was making about the need for that collaboration between parents and teachers. Look, I have been a teacher before. I remember as a teacher in Yende Presby Primary School, one of the most important pillars of our school was basically the PTAs, because at that time we had so many challenges and we did not have the luxury of time to wait for intervention by government institutions. So we engaged the parent-teacher associations and we worked out modalities to be able to confront some of these challenges even before the state intervened. So clearly, that tells you the importance when it comes to training a child. You as the teacher may pretend to have all the skills under the sun, but the emotional disposition of the child, their special needs, because Ghana is still developing